councils of government, we must guard against the
NFL Draft
industrial complex.
What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here. Another episode of the Draft Industrial Complex coming at you. Myself and Tyler Brooke joining us. Tyler, how are you today?
I'm doing good. The dick took a little bit longer to get up this week, right? Am I right?
You've been holding that all week long, haven't you? Just been waiting to pounce.
There's too many good puns with it. It's just they're unlimited.
It's true, and yes, it's because of my scheduling down here in New Orleans at the Super Bowl. Radio Row is really popping now that it's Thursday, but it's kind of been busy time all week long. So I appreciate you being flexible with the timing of this. I am back in the hotel actually because, man, Radio Row, it's a madhouse right now, and actually the Wi-Fi is better here in my hotel. So I wanted to carve out the time and make sure we got another episode in this week. Because look, we're coming off a pretty important stretch when it comes to information about the draft and the players that may or not be on the radar of the Green Bay Packers, but just generally as far as evaluators getting some more information from both the Shrine Bowl, but particularly, especially if you're talking about the Packers, the Senior Bowl, where I'm sure you have any number of ways you could go with this, but I do want to kind of start 30,000 feet. Looking at the week, the practice is obviously the most important aspect of this. Was there anyone or was there a set of guys that jumped out to you over like everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, and we can get into like Packers specific standouts in a little bit as far as like targets, but like it was a great day or great week for the trenches. I'll be honest, this is the most I've ever watched the Senior Bowl. They had me do daily recaps for the 33rd team. I'm like, I'm not even down in mobile, so I'm watching all of these
the coverage, right?
Oh, it's crazy. But guys in the trenches just had a killer week. Gray Zabel, who probably is a Packers target out of North Dakota State, dominated the trenches for offensive linemen. That was, tackle kicked inside. The biggest winners by far left after a couple days, and that's Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, an edge guy that Justice Mosqueda really likes, out of Texas A&M, bendy, gigantic edge rusher. And then Mike Green out of Marshall, of all places, who might be a top 15 pick after the Senior Bowl. Dominated in one-on-ones. There's a bull rush against Josh Connerly, who's widely considered a first-round tackle, where he just threw him to the dirt. It's so interesting that, you can tell which guys are going to be first-round picks when they dominate that quickly, and then they're like, all right, peace, I'm out. And they just I
put on tape what I needed to put on tape. I'll see you.
I love those and I think there's some component of it that's kind of stinky. It really sucks for like the Senior Bowl to, invite these guys, do all this logistic stuff and have these guys leave early. But in my mind, it's a win-win. These kids leave, they got their draft stock solidified, and then it gives other players a chance to shine and, show out and get more opportunities. So
I was going to say, and then, get an opportunity in the game as well,
100%.
Where if the frontline guys stick around, maybe they don't get as much. Of course, I think they'll play, but yeah, that's the thing to me where there's no doubt that all the eyes are on you. And if you put what you need to on tape, you show the evaluators both in person and the guys who are getting tape later. If you show them what you need to show them, it makes all the sense in the world. And I do not blame the kids for that.
No, I don't. No. As long as that's communicated too. I just want to make sure that.
Sure.
Because there are scheduled interviews with teams too. That's the part we don't talk about. They meet with so many teams down there. So if you're leaving early and someone had already blocked out time to meet with you, that part, again, can be a little stinky. I'm not saying that that's what happened with these two kids that left early. But I just thought it's a little nitpick. It's not going to matter in the overall grand scheme of things, but this is what we wanted to talk about with the show, right? We kind of want to contextualize
1,000% correct.
Some of the tiny stuff, like how much do we want to weight these things? So that's one I'm not really waiting, but it's just something to just learn about, I think, more than anything.
I think it's interesting too, because it brings up that fun topic that I know there are some in the draft community that really bristle at this. And I used to be one of these folks who, there are certainly accounts on Twitter and people who cover the draft who go through painstaking process, I guess, of making sure everyone knows who guys met with team-wise, right? Now, look, you want to talk about what this show is about. Like, you talk about the Draft Industrial Complex. This is a deep cut of that community, right? And to me, I used to get really upset by it when I would be at the combine, because that question gets asked all the time there as well. Where have you met with XYZ? Like, it used to burn me up. I used to really hate it. But now I'm like, if it's a gate of entry for someone who is just trying to get their foot in the door, or even they're just interested in it, which is entirely possible, it's easy for me to just keep scrolling. Like I get it's especially being annoying in the moment when you're in a scrum and it's like, did you meet with the Chiefs? Like, dog. But at the same time, like again, if that's your thing and that's what you kind of pride yourself as far as this is what I track it all. Well, okay, great, man. I'm glad you track it all. They almost all meet with everybody, but
I was gonna say they meet with everybody. Like I just to tease an article I have coming out next week, I just interviewed Jalen Knoll, Iowa State wide receiver. Probably not a Packer,
right?
But just a phenomenal slot. Think of like a Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison kind of guy. But this guy is going to be a stud. And we just talked after the interview, and he's just like, yeah, like I've already met with like 12 different teams. I'm like, yep, that's kind of how this works.
That seems to be right.
I still get burned up by the people asking about visits. It drives me insane. But you got to put like, if you're listening to this, just put it in the shoes of like, it's 6 a.m. You might have had like 5 or 6 beverages the night before.
Maybe
everyone's exhausted.
Yes,
the players are exhausted. They are like,
they don't want to be there. Yeah,
they are go that whole week, and then like you just hear that first one, and then the floodgates open, and you just
that's the other problem, right? Like if you meet with the Chiefs, okay, yes, I did. What about the Steelers? Did you meet with the Seahawks? Like, oh my God, shut up. Yeah, no, I feel you. But again, like I said, like, man, I'm telling you what, and you want to put that in perspective, come down to Radio Row during Super Bowl week or go to opening night.
I mean, I saw the guy asking the Chiefs players about the refs, and I'm like, you got some balls to use your credentials.
At least that's a football question. Dude, I was with Travis Kelce this morning. They were asking him if his mom's going to make the cookies before the Super Bowl. Like, that's where we're at. So have you met with Team X? Like, okay. It is kind of annoying and frustrating, but at the same time, again, at least it's football. At least they're trying to be involved on the football side. So
this is the Draft Industrial Complex vent episode.
Yes,
all the things
exactly. All the things that bug the shit out of us. No, like I've said, like, man, and look, here's the other thing. Like the folks who kind of really lean into that, at least that I've seen, like they are hustlers and they are
some of those guys absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like really they're working their ass off to go to these all-star games, to get into the combine, and just to get credentialed for the thing is a big deal. I remember my first year I got credentialed. I had no idea what to ask. So the fact that they've at least got a game plan, like, okay, like pass off, you're hustling. Like that's my thing where like you used to burn me up, but now I'm like, okay, I respect the grind, but it's not my grind. It's not something I'm interested in, but I get it.
First question I ever got to ask Matt LaFleur, I guess the only question I've ever asked him was at the combine. And I asked him about wide receivers and why he loves them run blocking so much.
There you go.
And he had like a 2-minute answer. And I just
loves talking about that.
Yes. Tex Western. I just remember turning to him and I was like, that was awesome.
It's true. It's so good. When you get them talking ball, that's what it's all about. 100%. No question about it. Let's look, talking about ball and the Packers, let's look at some guys that maybe turned a head or two, or maybe increased the possibility that they might land in Green Bay. We can go whatever position you like, however you want to kind of, you can drive the car here.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the Super Bowl not paying attention to anything. Mm-hmm. So it's really up to you as far as which guys maybe may not solidify themselves as potential Packers, but certainly maybe put themselves on the radar.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. So I got 4 positions for you, and I've got 2 prospects at each.
Let's hit it.
Because I'll be honest, I thought a lot of kids stood out. Like we talked about it heading into the Senior Bowl, just absolutely loaded roster this year. So to see some of these kids where I was like, I didn't see this one coming. I really enjoyed, and it forced me to go and watch the tape on a couple of these kids I had not watched yet. So that's why I love the Senior Bowl. I mean, I probably got 15 new names out of it there. I was like, I really like this guy. So
awesome.
Let's get started at receiver because I do think the Packers are going to take one.
Hey, where's Josh Jacobs when you need him? Hey, he can join us.
He's right. He's totally right. I totally agree with what he said. When I think about specifically a receiver they need, I don't think number 1 is the right way I'm looking at it. I want a height, weight, speed guy again. But I want some guy that can produce. It's got to be a Christian Watson replacement. If they want to trade for DK Metcalf, do it. Just do it. He's so cool.
That's a dream, right? And I think it's going to stay a dream. But I love the idea.
I can think irrationally about it, but I just think DK Metcalf would look sick in a Packers jersey, and that's my fan brain. But if we want a guy that's like an X, I would say like an X prototype receiver. 2 guys that stood out the Senior Bowl. Jack Besh was the star of the Senior Bowl. If you know, his brother passed away in the terror attack in New Orleans before the Georgia Notre Dame playoff game. He was, big storyline throughout the year. And in the game, at the last play of the Senior Bowl game,
he won it, right?
Scored the game-winning touchdown. It's just incredible. But
crazy.
He dominated the whole week of practices, whether it was like winning with speed, after the catch, contested catches, all that. So he was a guy I went back and watched the tape, and like he is the most scary receiver in this draft class to bring down after the catch. Nice. He runs like a running back. It is incredible to watch. He was recruited as a tight end at LSU and then transferred to TCU as a wideout. So clearly the tight end background shows up immediately. He gives great effort in run blocking. Matt LaFleur is going to love that. And again, he's just like a height, weight, speed guy. I wouldn't say he's like the fastest, but he's got those long strides to push vertically. He is a contested catch maestro. And again, after the catch, he's just so good. Like he's not a polished route runner. He's not going to like blow everyone away at the combine or anything like that. But like, as far as like he's just a LaFleur.
It sounds like precariously close to a really good football player who maybe not is the best athlete, which means the Packers won't take him. Don't get me all excited for someone, man. But here's the thing, though. I could see it as a potential like day 2 down the line kind of pick. That does sound Packery to me.
Now, let me tell you about a guy that I would not be shocked to go in the first round. Could be an early day 2 guy, but I would love this guy in a Packers uniform. Matthew Golden, I've given up on. Okay,
he's not going to be there, right?
So I'm
now not going to be their guy.
Exactly. So I've now put all of my eggs in the Jaden Higgins basket out of Iowa State.
All right.
Talk about another height, weight, speed guy, big body. I think he's 6'3", 6'4", 210, 220, something like that.
That's the Packers language right there.
But what I'm blown away by with this guy is like clearly an athlete and everything. He is an absolute technician as a route runner, attacking leverages, decelerating, manipulating with his shoulders and eyes. Like there's a lot of advanced stuff in his route running, whether it is deep downfield or off the line, that I'm like, that guy is going to be an immediate contributor at the NFL level.
There you go.
I've learned a lot about wide receiver play, having to coach them for the last couple of years. This kid, I was just blown away. I was like, he's just ready to go right now. He will be an instant contributor on an NFL offense as a rookie. I feel very confident in that. I'm curious to see what he tests at the combine. I actually think he might run faster than people think. I've seen some scouting reports that think he's not fast. And I'm like, he's kind of explosive when he gets up.
It's always interesting to have that conversation, right? As far as like whatever he tests on, it's like, well, what does the tape tell you? And how does he play? Because all the time, how many times have we seen guys who test like 4.3, or something 4.4, and wow, they're blazers, but they have no ability in space. They can't really work angles. I mean, if you can play, that's the most important part. And it sounds like he can.
It's one of my favorite conversations with his teammate, Noel, who, again, that interview's next week. We were talking about, because Noel's such a dominant vertical threat, his teammate Noel led college football with 50-yard touchdowns last year.
Wow.
It's something insane like that. And they were just talking about, like, being a vertical threat doesn't just mean you're fast. It means, like, manipulating and attacking.
Setting guys up. 100%.
Exactly. It sounds like their wide receiver coach at Iowa State did a phenomenal job of getting those guys ready. So if that's the wide receiver, like, more realistically, I think the Packers could get, I'm a huge fan of him. I'm really excited.
I love that. You're thinking that there's a potential that he goes in the first?
The problem is there's a couple of receivers ahead of him. Like I'm thinking of Buka, Luther Burden, Golden,
the names you've heard a lot of, right?
But like it's a position where guys do reach in the first round. And I think about last year where, that tail end of the first or the second, like 4 or 5 went. I could see that that's kind of that range where Higgins goes.
I mean, let's talk about it. The Packers, first round,
in Green
wide
Bay,
receiver, in
as
Green
Mark
Bay.
Murphy leaves.
Oh my gosh, that would be pretty amazing. The pop there would be fun. That would be a good time.
I think of the pop, But if they want to give up that first for Myles Garrett, we can just do whatever.
Well, we've talked about it. We've talked about it. Like, I'm not averse to it, but man, that idea, drafting a wide receiver in the first round for the first time since Javon Walker while the draft is in Green Bay, I'm down with that. I could live there.
All right, let's get to the not as exciting pops because these guys aren't first round picks, but they're guys I really liked at the Senior Bowl on the defensive line specifically. Darius Alexander out of Toledo and Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech. These are probably more day 2, early day 3 guys. Alexander dominated like all the one-on-ones he was in. He's got a great combination of, he's like 6'4", 310. You would not guess he's 310 with the way he's built. Like he wears it really well. He's strong as hell at the point of attack, and he's got enough quickness. And then for Peebles, he's on the shorter end. He's like 6'1", 290, or maybe even 6 foot flat. You're like, that's really small for a D lineman. So you'd expect the quickness and explosiveness for a smaller D lineman, right? But the way he plays against the run is just extremely technically sound. His pads are always super low, which if you have to know how many defensive linemen I have to watch that are just too damn high off the snap.
Right. I mean, that's
I've
most of
watched
college football in my eyes. You know,
100%. I mean, I look at the Kentucky kid that was at the Senior Bowl, who's like 6'7" and 350 or
Lord.
whatever. Just cannot get low.
Yeah.
But Peebles, I've watched him take on double teams where he's just not getting pushed back for as light of a D lineman as he is.
Okay.
So I went back and watched the tape because of how well he played in the Senior Bowl. Really blown away. I think those are two really fun D linemen. And I know we talked about a potential first round D lineman, but I think there's value in these later rounds at the position because there's just so many. Like this
that
class
was
is
going to
loaded.
be my question, because I know Daniel Jeremiah has mentioned this as far as the depth at that position.
Yeah.
And I do think the Packers add there at some point.
100%.
And it's going to depend on the value of when they are on the clock, obviously. Yeah. But because of that depth, that would not surprise me to see late day 2, early day 3, maybe even a double up. Because look,
I could see them doubling up.
I love Carl Brooks, love Colby Wooden, but man, they got to raise the talent floor there.
Yeah.
They absolutely have to do
Add
it.
competition.
Exactly. And I think
competition makes everyone better. Even
a double up there would, I mean, not necessarily these two gentlemen, but who knows?
Ooh,
like
who else these two gentlemen?
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
but that idea, like adding along the front, along the interior, I think I'm all in on that, because I just think you saw it repeatedly last year, the trouble they had when they only rushed 4. Got to get more guys, got to get more bodies in kind of waves to send to the quarterback.
And body types too. I'd love to see a big run stuffing nose and then a guy with a little lighter that's a little more explosive.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm all about the run stuffing nose guy, but I just feel like they're not. Like, I know TJ Slayton was doing work this year, but I'll be very interested to see if they bring him back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like the type of guy they want.
But you can find But in this system, you could find, at least, not in the system, in this draft class, you can find some pretty freakish giants.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's where it changes the equation for me a little bit. It's like,
we'll see what their RAS is. That's going to be the big question.
That's the only way. That's the only way they draft anyone.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, I can talk corners now if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
Because
now you talk about premier position. That's going to be definitely a point of interest for Green Bay in this draft.
I think we talked early on the show too about how weird the top of the cornerback draft class is because everyone's hurt. But there's so many day 2 guys. Like, there's just so many day 2 corners that I'm a big fan of. I know I'm going to butcher his name, but the guy that Packers Twitter hounded me to watch, and I finally watched, and I'm like, he could be a first round pick. I think it's Azareye'h Thomas out of Florida State. This is a long press corner who can sticky in man coverage and everything like that. He's aggressive as hell. But the thing that blew me away on tape is just his body control, contorting midair to make a play on the ball or stay sticky. Just the way he's kind of like an acrobat in that sense. And it was a blanket all Senior Bowl. In these one-on-ones where a defensive back is just going to get cooked all the time.
In the worst position, right?
Yeah, it's the worst position for a corner. Like, him and this other guy I'm about to talk about just weren't giving up anything. And that other guy, Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky, who truthfully, his 2024 tape compared to 23, not awesome. But what consistently shows up on tape year over year is he's psychotic in a complimentary fashion. My favorite compliment I can give to a player is this kid's crazy. Especially at corner. I think you have to be wired.
You gotta be, you do have to be different.
Especially in Hafley's defense.
Yeah.
My favorite thing I watched early on with Jeff Hafley's defense is like, the corners are getting after it in the run. They are attacking the receivers and keeping their outside shoulder clean and filling. And you can see how much it helps the run defense. Yep. They need more bodies that can do that. And these two, Thomas and Hairston, are guys that are like built in a lab to do that. I think Hairston is a guy that's not getting enough love because of the down 2024 tape, but he's so competitive. He's so long and he flies downhill against the run. I think he is a legitimate asset where I absolutely see him in a Packers uniform just based off the play style and Hafley.
Now, here's the question. When you say down film in 2024, I instantly think King, former 7th rounder, who famously had a very subpar final year in college prior to a really good couple of years.
Yeah.
What was the fall off? Where did he take the step back?
Just he gave up more touchdowns in coverage and just, it wasn't a sound, but I also just think it was just a bad year for Kentucky. That post Will Levis era has been kind of ugly down there. So I think it's hard to be as hungry on a team that's really struggling in the SEC. And like, they just really fell off a cliff this year. I think it's hard to blame players by the tail end of a season when things have just gone horribly, horribly wrong because everyone's human, right?
Right.
I try to watch effort, and there's a guy I'm not going to name. We can talk about him after the recording that Packers Twitter loves. I hate because I hate the effort.
Oh
I just
no!
don't like.
Oh
putting
no!
people on blast. But you got to contextualize that effort, right?
Yes, exactly. 1000%.
What do you have to play for? Has it been a horrible year? Has everything gone wrong? I'm not going to be mad at the kid. Like it's just it's a human.
No, that's
human
understandable.
Yeah. All right, last position.
Yes, sir.
We talked briefly, and I got one that doesn't make any sense for the Packers, but I love him so much. All right, offensive line. We talked about Zabel a little bit. He was
Zabel's the one I'm buying all the stock in, which
Yeah.
means he won't get selected by the Packers. Just
I mean, he might go before the Packers.
Yeah, that's fair.
North Dakota State, produces legitimate linemen every year.
Truly.
It's a phenomenal program. I love watching them. Whenever you can get North Dakota State tape, it's just a treat. Just watch them bully other FCS schools. But Zabel was a left tackle, and they just decided, like, screw it, let's just start moving him all over the line in these one-on-ones. And no matter where he played, just no one was getting by him. Like, he's going against other, like, first-round edges and D tackles. He's like, whatever. It's fine. I think he projects best as a center, which makes me really interested in him because of obviously the Josh Myers situation.
Right.
He's just such a fluid mover, especially laterally. He keeps a wide base. Guys can't get around him. And when they try to bull rush him, he's still got like that tackle size so that he can anchor down and handle the bull rush. So someone I think really helped themselves out at the Senior Bowl. He was a top 50 prospect for me already before the Senior Bowl. So for him to, have such a good day kind of just like makes everyone feel confident. Like,
about
feel
what
good
they
with our
were thinking
evaluation.
about him.
Exactly.
Right. Yep,
so
that's good.
maybe
Like
someone
that.
overreaches and takes him in the first, but I think the position is crowded enough. It'll be hard to justify him over all these, toolsy tackles that could also play guard. But I'm curious to see where he goes just because, some coaches and GM's philosophies are production over potential, and clearly he showed it at the college level. So
Love it.
other guy, no way the Packers will take this guy. I just love him so much. Willie Lampkin, North Carolina guard center. He's 270 pounds.
What?
He was the smallest lineman by far. And then I turned on the tape. Fastest feet I've ever seen on a lineman, which is to be expected.
Should hope so, right?
The leverage game he plays with guys, though, like his lower body strength for being so small is genuinely impressive. And he can like straight up move people in the run game because he stays so low and his feet just keep moving. Blown away by his tape for such a small kid. And he kicked ass in the Senior Bowl. He was dirting like defensive linemen 60-pound bigger than him, and then he was letting them know it.
Oh, that's
he
great.
had a little bit of that mean streak to him too.
Hell yes.
No idea where he gets drafted though, because
Right.
like that's just such a rare size for a player.
Or I can't imagine that in the league. Like imagine,
But at center, you can
up,
kind of get away with it if you have size around.
That's true.
him.
That's fair. Shout out Scotty Wells. Like,
Yeah.
he was a smaller guy.
You can be a smaller guy, and it can
If you
work,
know
so
leverage, you can make it work. No doubt about
there
it.
will be some old school offensive line coach that's going to fall in love with him though, and I'm really
love
looking
it.
forward to it. So I'm keeping an eye on him. It was so fun. Be like, because I remember seeing I had to put in all the measurables for everyone. It was exhausting, but I was like,
crazy.
Who the hell is this 270-pound lineman? And then after the Senior Bowl, I turned on the tape, and it was so fun. I had a blast watching him.
I love it. Well, those are certainly all positions the Packers will be
Yeah.
keeping an eye on here. And, it's interesting now, kind of this stretch coming off of those two premier all-star games.
It's like the Super Bowl's over. Give me like a couple
I know. Well,
days.
that's the thing. That's the question. Coming into the combine, Packers obviously will be asked a million questions about free agency that they will absolutely punt on. And it will be just Brian because Matt doesn't go anymore. I'm fascinated to see where the Packers are at as far as they're building their coaching staff, right?
Yes,
Because
same.
in the past, we've been to the combine where Matt still hasn't hired a coach or two. Like I very specifically remember him asking me, "Don't ask about wide receivers coaches, a wide receiver not having a wide receivers coach." And I was like, "Yeah, I got it." And the first thing I did was ask when he was at the podium. I was like, "So, are you going to hire a wide receivers coach?" And I don't think he is ever going to forgive me for that one. But so that just is to point out that they're still going to be most likely still building their staff. And I only point that out because it's like people often ask if the coaches are involved in the process with the personnel folks, and as far as are they getting input, or are they being asked about guys? And I think people have this misconception that yes, it is a collaborative process. There's certainly conversation that goes on between personnel and the coaching staff, but I'm here to tell you, like, this is the personnel staff's baby, especially in Green Bay. Like, there's no reason to fret or be like worried because the coaching staff is filled out yet, because they are going to have to work with whoever the personnel staff ends up produced throughout the free agency and the draft.
Well, what I'm more interested in is, do their evaluations or what they're looking for change because of Halfley more than LaFleur? Like LaFleur's entrenched.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we saw that a little bit with guys like Edgerrin Cooper that they drafted. And now I'm curious, like, now that you've seen success with that, are you changing your strategy or altering what you're looking for because of this new scheme? So that's going to be the most fun part of not even just the draft of free agency. I'm just so curious to see what kind of guys they're bringing in.
Yeah, especially like when you look at their long-standing kind of both at wide receiver or at corner, as far as like they like bigger guys, stronger guys that can hold up when the weather turns, Lambeau Field in December.
Yeah.
But man, it is a different game now. And the idea that there's certainly cases to be made for different types, right? Whereas maybe 20 years ago they were pretty solid staying within certain parameters. And I do think Brian has shown a little bit more of versatility, and he talks about that a lot, right? The idea that he likes guys that can do a lot, and they've talked about that in regards to drafting for Halfley's defense. So, yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be an interesting kind of curve to follow, because I do think they certainly seem to produce guys specifically for what Halfley wanted to do on that side of the ball in last year's draft.
Listen, if 156-pound Tez Johnson can be considered a day 2 pick, I think that's all you need to know about how much the game has changed.
Right. 100%. No question about it. Tyler, this is awesome. Thank you so much for, again, being flexible timing-wise and for all the great knowledge and watching these guys, because God knows I don't have the time and I'm not going to be able to. So it's great to have boots on the ground, so to speak. And we'll definitely talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go.
In the councils of government, we must guard against
NFL Draft.
industrial complex.